Hey Jay.
Good morning, Natalie.
Oh man, it's such a good morning. It's such a good morning
A-
because it's Friday.
And you just got back from Alabama.
Ooh, I don't have a song. Oh my gosh. Sweet Home
No.
Alabama. Dun, dun, dun. And nobody was singing Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah. In
I
Sweet Home Alabama, nobody?
Nobody. I was
Oh,
in Dothan, I was in Birmingham, and my accent fit right in, but
yeah.
nobody was singing sweet. I expected it to be like when you go to Nashville, you walk into the airport and they're playing nothing but country music. Alabama's going to have to step up. I think
Okay.
they're still in mourning
Okay.
over Nick
Just one
Saban.
question. So what was that Reese Witherspoon movie where what was
It
that
was
one?
Sweet Home
It
Alabama.
was
I'm
okay,
pretty
there you
sure it
go.
was actually
But
You're an
remember
Idiot.
when she
And
said, you have a baby in a bar? That was my
oh,
favorite
that's a
line in a
baby
movie.
in a
In a bar.
bar. It's the way she said it, in a bar.
So if you need a little caregiver funny, just go watch
Oh,
Sweet Home
watch that. Oh,
Alabama.
Sweet House is
It'll
so
make you
good. I know
laugh.
Jennifer's, what is this about? Like, I can feel you wanting to jump in. You're like, I have seen that movie, as a
Yeah,
matter of fact.
it's our laughter. Okay, let's get serious now.
All right,
It's
we're
no
going
more
to pull it
bantering.
together. Let's
Pull it
pull it together,
together.
Jay.
Pull it together. Yes, yes, yes. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. So today we have a fantastic guest,
We
but
do.
we already knew her, which is really interesting. Which, yeah, she may not claim us, but I want to give you a little backstory. So we met today. We have Jennifer Jenkins with us, and we actually met her on a show we did. She was a
Hmm.
representative for the Elizabeth Dole Foundation last
Hmm.
November, and that was during our Heroes Caring for Heroes campaign. But in sharing the information about the organization, we learned a lot more about Jennifer, and we knew we had to have her back. She has dedicated her career to advocacy and communication with a multitude of organizations and awards. But Jennifer has been a caregiver for over half her life, caring
Mm.
for a grandparent with dementia, and then in 2005, becoming a full time caregiver for her brother James, who was wounded in Iraq while serving in the U.S. Army. She is also a wife to a Navy veteran. She is a mother to a U.S. Marine, and if that were not enough, she has a 2-year-old daughter who arrived as a preemie. She's a little busy. She's got a lot going on. Jennifer, we are so happy to have you here, not to talk about the educational side, but you're going to talk about real life today. So, what is
Mm.
going on with
She was
you?
faking it the last time we were on.
Yeah.
Oh, that was professional.
Yeah,
That was, there's
exactly.
like professional Barbie and then there's pool Barbie.
Oh, your caregiver Barbie. Oh my God.
Barbie
You
for
know
sure.
what? Okay, so for everybody who can't, who's not on, not watching on our YouTube channel, she is blonde.
Yes.
So she could be professional Barbie,
Yes.
or caregiver Barbie for sure.
Yeah.
And absolutely beautiful. But here's the thing, beautiful on the inside too. The Heroes Caring for Heroes series was I'm singing to the background noise. Don't you love when something comes on in the background?
Mute me.
Oh,
No, no, we
you're
got
good.
you. So the Heroes Caring for Heroes series was military and veteran caregivers, and we talked about how the Elizabeth Dole Foundation supports as well as Wounded Warrior, because Jennifer's connected to the Wounded Warrior, and we'll get into that later. But that's when we learned about her caregiving, and she's just caregiving military. It's all together. Jen, why don't we? I know we like to start from the beginning.
So, we usually say, as Natalie says, you were born and then jump to the caregiving start, the place. So, you said over half your life. So, let's go. Like, how did it begin?
Like you, JJ, I'm the oldest. I'm
Mm.
13 years older than my siblings. So I
Oh.
did a lot of caregiving for littles when I was a
Mm.
teenager.
Oh, wow.
Um, and a lot of that was because I grew up in a house that wasn't so great.
Yeah.
Mm.
I had a really amazing mentor in my life, my grandmother, and she took care of so many people
Mhm.
in her short 92 years. And thankfully, I had someone that I could turn to during tough times, but who also helped me learn ways to get through those tough times on my own.
Yeah.
And when I was 15, my grandmother was diagnosed with breast cancer
Mm.
and had a single side mastectomy, all of her lymph nodes removed. It was very invasive surgery. So this was mid 80s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I cared for her when she came from the hospital. I cleaned her wounds while she still had stitches. Oh
Wow.
gosh. And I remember it was scary, but it was also I felt so much honor in being able to provide that care for her.
Now, Jennifer, did you move in? Were you there all the time? Is that kind of, you were full-time care? You were 24/7?
Yeah, I was back and forth anyway as a
Yeah.
child to my
Yeah.
grandmother's house, but yes, I moved in during that time.
Wow.
We didn't have a car by then. My grandmother had given up her car,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I, of course, couldn't drive because I wasn't old enough. So if I needed to go somewhere, I we called the taxi. We lived in a rural area, but you could still call the taxi, meaning there was one guy.
Yeah.
So wait,
And
where are
my
you from? Where are you from originally?
I'm from Southern Indiana.
Okay,
Okay.
so Southern India. I've got to have it like picture it, Sicily, 1932, like Golden Girls, because that's
Picture
a
it, a gravel road, it's dusty.
yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot
Well,
of
we're from a
trees.
rural area too. We had gravel,
Totally
and
understand.
totally we can relate.
We would call ahead to the Mitchell and Berry Drug and Sundries. It sounds like it's Little House on the Prairie, but we would call ahead and they would get our grocery order and any medicine that we might need or whatever. And we had a charge account there.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I would take the taxi and go to Mitchell and Berry. And while I was there, I got myself a chocolate ice cream. And then I would have arranged for the taxi to take me home, and that is was my first experience with caregiving.
How long did you care for your grandmother?
So that stint, I was there about a month until
Mhm.
she started getting around on her own and people from church started caring, and of course, I had to go to school.
Oh, so you
Um,
had to learn as well.
yeah,
Like you were expected to still learn.
yeah, I remember some of my teachers made these giant packets of work for me to do while I was away.
Mhm.
It's a planned thing, and then it wasn't until about 10 years later when I was all grown up where I was working in radio. I had my own little baby. And that's when my brother and sister were going to be removed from my parents' home by child services. And so I was presented with the proposition of them going into foster care
Yeah.
or me becoming their legal guardian. If there is an adult sibling who is responsible and capable, they will place younger children with them.
100%.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know that, and it was an interesting time in my life. My sister ended up, staying with someone else, and my brother stayed with me, so that was hard, but I raised him through high school, and I felt really good about it because he made a lot of growth. We both made a lot of growth, but that's a caregiving experience in and of itself. However, the real caregiving for James didn't start until he was wounded in Iraq.
So
And
I wanna pause for 1 second because number 1, I've worked in the foster care system for 25
Mm.
years, and you're right. While it is not here's the thing, it is very common to place children with kinship. It is not super common that they go with an adult sibling that is in their probably early 20s, because that's what I hear you telling me is, I was in my early 20s, and so you had gotten married, so you supported your grandmother
Mhm.
and which I think is great because that's near and dear to my heart. I supported everybody supported, and when you said, "Oh, the schools," I just want to pause. Everybody knew the schools made sure that you didn't get behind. They made you packets of homework so that you didn't fail, kind of thing, and fail on so many levels. And the fact that you had the taxi service, think about the time now because we didn't have hello Uber. We didn't have Uber then. Uber Health, thank you. Um, and I'm assuming you were doing making food and all that kind of stuff.
I went to
And
the bank and paid, the note on my grandmother's gas stove.
yeah, exactly. And you're 15, and this is not what we would consider normal childhood type development or the activities. And but I think in rural areas, but I don't want to even say rural areas, but definitely in rural areas, the community just says, okay, how do we support one another? So then you get so you get married then, is that correct? You get married and that where
Yeah.
your
I got
your
married and
husband
divorced, and then I was a single mom of a little
Oh,
guy.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
you got married and divorced. I'm a big bel I'm on my second. And for everybody, you can appreciate that. I'm not don't tell Jason, I've got a backup plan just in case this one doesn't work out, but we've been together 20 years, so I figure I'm gonna stick with this one. Lazy dater. But so you got married and divorced, but had a baby, and then you took your brother in. And so that's even more because you're single mom. And so you took your brother in. Okay. And so your brother, so you both grew up more together. That's
Mhm.
interesting. How was high school life? If I can just pause for a second in that because you are a caregiver, that's a hard role.
Mhm.
You're guardian because you're technically the guardian, which means you're the quote unquote parent and sibling.
Yeah. First, we got a lot of questions. We look alike. And people would think, "Is that his mom? She looks really young, but it must be his mom." And there's another baby. And people would refer to my son and my brother as my son and my brother as brothers. And we just got to the point where we would let it go.
yeah,
Just
Just
let
think
it
what you
go.
want, people.
absolutely.
I don't even care.
Yeah, yeah.
It was I was so strapped for time because I was working and have this baby, and that I couldn't volunteer for football boosters, but I did make sure that he got to every practice, and
Yeah.
I would say I was a stern parent.
Mhm.
I had goals for him, and it was not to fall back into our previous generation's habits.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And so it's interesting. Did you get any training on how to be a parent? Because you're a caregiver, you had experience caregiving with tasks and supports, and you knew how to do the stuff like help do things. But any tips from respectfully from social services on, hey, this is how you raise a young person, by the way.
No, but I will say this, our brains have muscle memory. I was a Girl Scout. I did a lot of babysitting.
Yeah.
They did make me become CPR certified, which for a 13-year-old, that's fine. I did it, but I did have a lot of sort of subtle training growing up that I recalled in those moments.
Oh, wow.
Everything from being an efficient grocery shopper to preparing simple meals.
Yeah.
It's one thing for me with a baby to feed myself and give him peas and carrots and some sliced up chicken, but for me to feed a teenage boy, to have this family, it became much different. Huge hurdles when you start caregiving for a young person that even though I was the guardian, like I had to get a court order to add him to my health insurance, just crazy
Yeah.
stuff, and those are things that you experience when you care for an adult. Later on
Yes.
in life, you find out, "Oh my gosh, what? I can't do their banking? I
Mhm.
can't talk to the doctor about them? That's crazy."
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it does sound like you were honestly truly prepared. I want to take a break just real quick, Jay, for commercial, and then we'll jump right back in.
Hey, everybody, we're back and we're talking to Jennifer Jenkins. We have been talking also about being prepared with documentation,
Wow.
Natalie, and just not knowing the things that you need when you're taking in someone to care for. So let's jump back into the conversation, Jennifer. So I got a question for you. You've got a brother, you've got a son. Just give me an idea of the time frames. How old are they? When you take your brother in, how old is he?
He is 13.
Okay, so
Mm,
13, you're 25, you have an infant, and then
Mhm.
your brother, I know you take full care for him beginning in 2005 because of his injury. Somewhere in there, you also have your grandmother. She gets sick again. Is that right?
Mhm.
mm,
Yeah, so I'm raising my brother. He joins the Army right after 9/11
Hmm.
in high school. And around the time my brother went away for boot camp, things started changing with her on the phone.
Hmm.
She became agitated. She told me that she got fired from the hospital where she volunteered for 15 years.
mm.
I went so far as to call them. I was quite angry, and they really didn't tell me much, and they probably couldn't tell me much about what was going on, but I started seeing things like incontinence and
Yeah.
different signs that were off.
Yeah.
I decided it would be a good idea to move my grandma to assisted living. So we made arrangements when my brother was home the next time you're home from the army, we're moving grandma to assisted living and you're helping.
You're
Welcome home.
nominated.
Good to be in charge, isn't it? And you're helping. JJ does that to me sometimes,
too.
Jennifer. She'll be like, Natalie, are you going to go do this? And it's more of a period than a question mark.
Yeah. So we moved her to assisted living.
Yeah.
And 30 days later, she crashed and burned because I didn't know that she had dementia. She hadn't been officially diagnosed, but I now know that when you make big changes or you have a big illness, the dementia drastically increases.
Yeah.
I got a phone call from a hospital social worker that my grandmother was in Walmart. Now, mind you, the previous 30 days, I was getting called every day from the assisted living place about my grandma. And I was like, just give her some time. I would call her on the phone. I would just.
God bless her. Eugene, we've got some edits. I've just paused my timer because I paused my timer.
Yeah. The life with a 2-year-old. That is fun.
It is. It happens.
Oh, yeah.
So be it.
She's back.
We can't hear. All I hear. Yeah. That's it.
I gotta find my phone. Where they are, they're interrupting.
It's hard to be little.
It is.
Here they are.
I don't know why it's picking up the background so much.
Mike probably. She's probably got a good mic. Or it's not those directional ones that are really interesting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, because it completely had went out.
My Mac was talking to this dumb thing.
We are technologies. It's okay.
Don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna start. I just paused it, and it's not a big deal because these are easy. These are edits, so don't we don't care.
No frets.
Like we already started and stopped already once. We don't care.
We lose people. Yeah, we're like,
care. Okay,
I'm calling you for 30 days. So we can just start back there.
Yeah.
Okay. And my grandma was at Walmart for 24 hours. She went to Walmart on the taxi, wandered around, did her little bit of shopping, but then just never left. And so the people came back from the next day. They were like, hey, Mrs. Smith is still here. I mean, this is some all Walmart, early days of Walmart, right?
Yeah.
And they put two and two together. They called an ambulance.
Oh.
And she got on a hold at the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow. As a psych hold, she's TDO'd.
Yeah, and then I had to talk to a judge to bring my grandma, my beautiful Pentecostal, never squashed an aunt grandma.
Oh my gosh.
How old is she at this point?
She's like 86.
Yeah.
Yeah, just chilling at Walmart. What's too bad Walmart doesn't have like beds, like the old school, Sears. Everybody can sponsor us at this point. JC Penney's had beds.
Food.
Yeah.
She bought some Snickers, like
snacking. At least she bought it. It
Yeah.
wasn't like she was shoplifting. She was just chilling at the Walmart. Honestly, have you seen a Walmart? They're pretty big. Lots to do. So
go ahead.
you go and spring your grandmother because you go to the magistrate is where she went to the judge. And then what happened?
They wouldn't let me take her. I was like, I'll just take her home. And they were like,
Mhm.
yeah. So the doctors did a lot of tests while she was at the hospital, and she has advanced dementia, and
Wow.
so we wanna put her in a facility. Now, I don't have POA, I don't have guardianship, I have nothing.
Mm.
I was able to put her in a facility very close to my home that I knew some people that work there. It was, oh god, ideal. So then that also was difficult and advanced her dementia a bit further, but then we plateaued for a long time.
Yeah.
I did her laundry, I did her nails. We went on lots of drives and field trips to my house, and
Yeah.
I tried to make the end of her life very beautiful for
Yeah.
where she was.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if she went in at 86, I'm just trying to do a little
Mhm,
math here, Jennifer, and she passed at 92. We've got
mhm,
the 6-year window there,
mhm.
but your brother is injured in 2005.
Yeah,
So
he's
that's
in
between
Iraq.
all this.
Yeah, so now he's in Iraq.
Okay.
No more helping with grandma. She knows this. Like he writes her letters. She writes him letters, although they say the same thing over and over again many
It's
different
okay.
times. "I miss your grandfather. Our farm was lovely." And, he had long since passed, but she would get stuck on things. Like, my brother, God love him, would write her things that about what was happening over
Mhm.
there, as if she were our grandma who would help us get through all that, and
Yeah.
she would get stuck on things like just horrible things, and she would
Yeah.
repeat them. And so I'm trying to, like, still care for my son. I'm sending my brother care packages. It's anguishing for him to be over there, right? Because
Yeah.
JJ, I am really good at controlling just every single thing, and I couldn't. That's really the beginning of where I started experiencing anxiety in my
Mhm.
life. Funny, I hadn't recognized that all those years before, and I didn't tell anybody about that.
Mm-mm.
Of course not. Why would you
No.
be a
Mm-mm.
burden to someone else? You're taking care of everybody else but yourself.
My brother got blown up. Now he's in the army hospital where he's gonna get out of the army, but he's all these problems, brain injury. He's got internal injuries, orthopedic surgeries.
It was a
He just had
very significant injury.
yeah, he drove over a bomb. I have to tell my grandmother because she's expecting him to come and visit her,
Yeah.
and he's different.
Yeah.
Um, in some ways, because of learning about dementia, I was actually able to understand my brother's brain injury a lot
Mm.
better,
Wow.
and I knew fairly quickly that it was gonna be with him for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, of course, the day it happens, you think they're gonna get better, they're gonna go back to the army in their life, but he didn't. It took me about 5 years to grieve who I pictured him
Yeah.
being, and I know you have a lot of listeners that grieve while their loved one is alive. You're not grieving them per se.
Mm,
You're grieving your thoughts and dreams and hopes for them.
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
I guess it sounds like to me, and for Nellie and Emily, and they know this because our parents worked a lot. They to me have always been my children. Like Emily calls me the mother hen because I had a lot of power at the house. I'm telling you, it was like the snap of a
JJ was in
finger
charge. Here's the
all the
thing.
time.
Spoiler alert, JJ's still in charge.
That's right. But it sounds like in addition to being just your brother, you are a significant mother figure. So do you feel like that, at least in my mind, you take on that heart role? So this is a brother injury, but this is like a child in your heart. So there's so much more tied up in this, Jennifer. And I feel like maybe you've got a son, eventually you have this daughter, and in your mind, you're also seeing this brother that's going to play with your kids and you're gonna watch him get married and have kids, and so
Yeah.
you tell us more. What happens next? You
Oh
bring him
gosh,
home.
a lot happens.
Yeah,
I honestly so many details I don't remember because I'm entrenched. I have to
yeah,
learn about brain injuries and army retirement and VA disability and Social Security, and thank God I already knew a little bit about that because I was, like, taking care of my grandma.
yeah,
So, I just for several years, I'm telling you, for 5 years, I just plugged through and kept my head down and did all the things, and then it became time for my grandma to pass,
yeah,
She was diagnosed with throat cancer, and so we chose hospice. And the last 3 days of her life, I stayed with her bedside, and passing with your loved one that you've cared for is a blessing and a curse, because you know your time doing that care is coming to an end, and you just wanna make it so gentle for them.
Yeah.
My brother had seen a lot of death in Iraq and was not able to do that, and I'm glad I was able to give him that gift to say, "I got this."
Yeah. You always got
Remem
it. That's what I'm hearing.
remember her just remember her the way that she
Yeah.
was for you, and you guys are not gonna believe this when I tell you this.
Really.
But a few months after my grandmother passed, I got a call from a hospital that my mother had a stroke. I had not spoken to my mother in many years. Many years.
Mhm.
My mom was on her own, there was nobody to take care of her. I gathered a couple distant relatives who knew my mom, and we placed her in the same home where my grandmother was. My grandmother had just passed,
Yeah.
and I obtained legal guardianship of my mom. It's something. Okay, I talked to my therapist about this a lot.
Oh, yeah.
The healthy choice might have been to not do that, to let the state take her over.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be like, I am trying to break generational habits, and I wanted to be the bigger person or the forgiving person.
Yeah.
So I have been my mom's legal caregiver for all this time. It's different. I have boundaries. I don't visit. I make sure she has the best care. I handle all of the circumstantial things, right? Finances, Social Security, the healthcare decisions. And I have some peace now that I can look at my mom and say the person that she is now is not the person that raised me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And therefore I can have empathy for this person.
That is really words of wisdom, because I'll tell you, children who have experienced trauma growing up is very hard. And not that it's hard for them to have empathy, but it would be anyone, I think we can all relate. It's very hard to care for someone that when your background, it's hard to do that. So I think that's a really good I think being able to separate periods of time, because people do change, especially after significant illnesses. I'm not saying that it's changes for the better, it's just different. And so how do you what I hear you saying is, I know how to protect myself so that you can perf perform that duty, so that you can do, and I think there's always an element that children do want their parents, no matter how badly or poorly they parented.
I have some advice if for people who need to get there. First, get in counseling. There's a lot
Mm,
of ways to get counseling. You can tell a doc, you can go to support groups. There's counseling through your employer, through your health insurance. Get it,
mm,
because you can't do this without releasing some of it from time to time. And second, if you have a loved one that you need to set boundaries with, that your past relationship was awful, don't be afraid to tell the daily caregivers at the facility that they're in about your past. Own it. I've told them,
mhm,
I have my mother here with you because she can get the best care, but I need you to understand what happened in our past life so that you understand the boundaries. It's not that I'm unkind, it's that I'm being kind to myself.
mm,
When you explain that to professionals, they'll get it. They'll get it.
mhm,
So that helped me a lot. Just being honest, being vulnerable. What's the worst thing that can happen? The state takes her back? I guess that would be the worst thing
mm,
for her, because then she wouldn't have somebody who really was trying
mm.
to make sure that she got good care.
Hey, ladies, I need to interrupt for just a second to share about the sisterhood membership. It's basically a sale every day. And the best part, it's free. Here's the details. We're partnering with our friends at Benefit Hub and other care partners to save you money. With over 200,000 participating companies across the US and abroad, you'll find discounts at your favorite local stores, huge savings on vacations, amazing deals on home, auto, and supplemental insurances, and everything in between. Go to confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com to sign up, and then definitely tell your friends about it. They can join too. Trust me, there's a discount for everyone. And don't forget, it's free. Okay, back to confessing.
And
Let me
yeah.
stop just for 1 second, Jen, because we got to take a break. We're going to come right back to that because this is so good. This is such good information. We're going to take a break.
Hey, Natalie, we are back and we are with Jennifer Jenkins, and she just shared something that has hit me. We were talking about setting boundaries, and she said, it's not that I'm being unkind, but that I'm being kind to myself. And Jennifer, that is a tip.
That's
That is
insightful.
that you got that, but you said counseling is something that you recommend for everybody. That's a top tip, and I totally believe that.
So let's jump in and talk about, let's transition because I want to, before we do that, you're still caring for your mother. Your mother's still with.
my brother's he just turned 40, just had his 22nd surgery connected to his war wounds. He's an absolutely delightful person. And my mom is the same. She's the same, but I have somebody new in my life to take care of.
I was going to ask if we were going to get into this because here's my question. You still had life going on. I know that you have a lot of affiliations that you have. You are a huge advocate. So you're doing all, you've gone to
Yeah,
school.
I'm like work. Like I don't
where,
even know when she has time to do anything. Like I'm
brush
feeling
her teeth.
exhausted.
So
Like
let's talk about let's talk about your life and how it
yeah.
has gone forward. Let's talk about that.
When my own son grew up, he decided to join the Marine Corps. And that's when I went to counseling because I was like, okay, I'm not okay. And since then, he's gotten out of the Marine Corps. He got hurt too. That's thankfully he recovered and is doing well. And
Yeah.
I have a granddaughter, and it's beautiful. But as I started trying to be a more healthy person and being kind to myself and really doing that hard work, I filled in gaps that I got a job. I finished my degree. I started doing yoga. A lot of things. I moved to my own home in Florida. I still go back and forth, but I made a big step. I stepped off a big cliff because I was expecting a big splash. I started filling in gaps. This is actually where Wounded Warrior Project helped me because they were always encouraging me, like, okay, what else do you need? Counseling, check. Work, check. What else do you need? And I really needed relationships. I have friends, of
Yeah.
course, but many of them are a bit disconnected. I have a couple who are really tight, but I wanted a partner, a good, solid, your baggage isn't too heavy for me partner.
Yeah.
And I met a Navy veteran, and during COVID, we got married and had a baby.
Oh my gosh.
Little boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had him a week before my 50th birthday.
Wow.
You are a good woman.
It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
big change. The hardest part has been when he was born early, and so he spent a couple months in the NICU, and I
Yeah.
started having caregiver flashbacks, like PTSD. I know how to turn off the machines, but I also know what the machines say, and I understand what the doctors say that when I overhear them talking, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
And that has forced me to go back to my old tactics. Okay, box breathing, get out a pen and paper and do some doodling, phone a friend. Like I just had to start going through the list.
Those are tips right there. Those are things that help decrease your anxiety. It's amazing the power of breathing.
Yeah.
Mhm. And when my son was hurt, I had learned by that time that there's 4 questions to ask someone when they're hurting or going through a crisis. Have you had anything to drink today? How much water have you had today? Have you had anything to eat? When was the last time that you ate? How much sleep did you get last night? How much are you even sleeping just recently? Have you talked to anyone? Who have you talked to?
Mm,
What have you told them?
mm. Those are good. Those are good questions. And especially when you're feeling, I call it upside down. When you're feeling upside down and you can feel the anxiety, typically it's like, would you like a drink of water? Would you like it's even and the question around have you had something to eat, would you like something to eat? Because what it's meant to do is distract and help get you re-regulated and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And these are
body,
easy
the
interventions.
Yeah.
yeah. Also, ask these questions of yourself.
Yeah.
When
Mhm.
you feel your heart racing, when you feel like you're holding every breath, ask yourself, "When was the last time I had a drink of water today?" Uh, there's some ancillary questions. Go outside for
Mm.
5 minutes, just breathe, look at a leaf.
Yeah. Wow.
It's the truth. It
Yeah.
helps you refocus and really get reconnected. Oh my gosh. These are
I'm
good
like, she's like,
strategies though,
yeah,
Jay.
no. Yeah.
These are really good strategies to be able to help when as a caregiver, and I'm going to tell you, I know we got to go to sister questions. As a caregiver, it's easy to become overwhelmed. And I
Mm.
think, Jen, you've probably been using a lot of these strategies intermittently throughout your entire life when you were caring. And there's a lot of pressure, especially as a young caregiver and your age and you're just growing up and you're like you get pushed with these things and you're finding strategies, but I think that's part of the point of having a counselor is they help wrap your brain around the why and help you identify what your body's telling you because your body will always tell you first that my ears when I get put on my ears get red or my hands get kind of sweaty and when you know what your body or listen to your body you can do the things to help get you settled. So, Jay, I hate to say this, time
It's a
for
sister
sister
question. I
questions.
know.
I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I feel like we need to go give Jennifer a hug.
Oh,
This is
okay.
a lot.
She's like
Virtual.
amazing.
I
I'm
love
I'm
our
so
virtual hug.
glad that we the for everybody that hears this message, like it's Jennifer, it's your story, but it is there's so much even I hear and I'm like, "Ah, it's like a breath. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna add when I get in that mode. I've had you said it, I've had calls every day from mom this week about a piece of medical
Mm.
equipment. And I'm like, and then I get the call from the doctor's office and she has the FaceTime. So it is exhausting. But something I heard you say, here's my sister question. You ready, Natalie?
Oh, I'm ready.
I'll just jump into it. So, what I have heard, everything that you've said is that this journey that has been over half your life, you have not allowed it to define you. And there are so many caregivers out there that they're a caregiver and they look at their life and it's just over. And you said that you started seeking out the things that fill the gaps. And I love that. What now? Because you're in it, you're in caregiving. What continues to fill your gaps? Like, where do you think you've gotten the most? What overflows your bucket now?
Honestly, a little bit of nostalgia.
Yeah.
My grandma taught me to write something down every day, even if nobody ever reads it. You can write it in your calendar, in a journal, on a scrap piece of paper that you picked up along the way. It really does help you make sense of it all.
Yeah.
I'm writing again. I've always been written it down every day, something, a sentence, but I'm really writing now.
Mm,
And I'm looking at some memories that are a little hard, but that's okay. Believe that when you're ready to listen to the hard songs, the one that was on the radio 27 times a day when your brother got blown up, that song for me is 100 years, Five for Fighting.
Yeah.
I for my brother got hurt 19 years ago, and honestly, for 18 years, I could not listen to that song. But recently, I've been listening to it in a new way, and I'm just working on looking at that nostalgia and saying, "What can I take from that that's positive?"
Yeah. Wow.
mm.
Wow.
And so I really like that because we all know it's so funny how there are songs or smells or things that really take you back. And I think you're right. You have to be in a place to be able to respond to that. You know what I mean? You have to be in a place where you're like, okay, I can handle this right now. Because you don't have to, here's a tip. You don't have to face it if you're not ready just yet, but
Yeah.
know you're going to have to pay the piper at some point. You're going to have to do that so that you can move on and be healthy. Sometimes it's not the right time,
Yeah.
but it will come in its time.
Yeah.
With your brother lives with you still. Is that right?
So he has his own apartment. I have a room there, but I have some new news. It's
Ooh, tell.
exciting. About 2 years ago, my brother met someone. Now, his long-term goal, once he got to a recovery point where he could
Yeah.
start setting goals for himself, was relationships. He
Yeah.
just turned 21 when he got wounded, didn't really ever have a serious girlfriend. That's what he wanted. That's what we all want. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, he met a special education teacher, and his baggage isn't too heavy for her to pick up.
Mm.
And
Wow.
she, a couple months ago, moved in to his apartment, and she is transitioning the caregiving role. It's gonna take a while. It's 19 years.
Ooh.
You don't just say, "Here you go." But it's wonderful to be collaborative with her. We've been so honest and so transparent, and she is absolutely lovely, and I'm hopeful. I'm gonna Photoshop her into all, like, the family photos. I think that would be fun to make a
Oh.
whole album where she's in there, like, this whole time. We didn't know
Oh,
it.
Uh,
wow.
okay, so that feels so good. Reminds me of Charisma, where Jennifer, she met Cole and his mother had cared for him for years. And that transitioning and that handing off, she talked about it from her perspective. She was like, that was a little hard, a little awkward because it was hard to hand that off. And Jennifer, you've been his caregiver. You've been his caregiver his entire life, but
Right.
different. You've been sister, you've been mom, you have been caregiver. Like you've got so many hats.
Yeah.
But the fact that you say it can be done, it can be done in a healthy way. It doesn't lessen anything I've done is so important, and it gives your brother independence.
Yes, because our care recipients, they don't want to be a burden to us,
Yeah.
and they have a lot of feelings about that. They sure do, and I wanna just say that all of the tactics that I incorporate continue to make me a better caregiver. Taking the time to go for a walk or to do my breathing or to practice yoga doesn't take away from me being a caregiver. It makes it
No.
better.
Yeah.
I
Taking care of
totally agree with
yourself.
that.
Yeah,
Oh, I think
absolutely.
it's so important. Okay, so here's my last question, because I'm so glad you shared that your brother has it. Okay, can we know her name? Because we're total girls, we're like, "What's her name?"
It's Denise.
Hi,
She's
Denise, we
lovely.
love you. We love you, Denise.
She she has 6, 7, 8 brothers and sisters.
Oh, it's
No,
perfect.
nothing bothers her. I couldn't have prescribed someone better.
Oh, I love that. Okay,
Makes my heart, it
so
fills my heart. I love
it
this.
does fill my heart. I'm like, "Oh, this is good." Okay, so, you know what? I feel like when you Photoshop her in, we need to have that with this episode so people have frame of reference. So they're like, "Oh, well, that's Denise. Hey, Denise." Last question, and this is always the fun one for me, is what's your favorite guilty pleasure? What is the thing that you do for yourself that you're like, "Oh, I ain't sharing that with nobody."
I I travel a lot for caregiving, right? I'm a long distance caregiver. Many of your listeners are, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If I like to have a little bit extra layover so I can treat myself to a sit down meal. Every airport has that opportunity. Might not be great food, but we're like, somebody is bringing me the food. I'm sitting there by myself. I might be reading a book or not. That's my guilty pleasure. I build in that time where no, I can't do anything, right? I'm stuck between flights.
"Oh, no, I
Got
have a layover that's 10
Oh,
days."
I'm talking about an hour and 45
I
minutes, like
Oh, I know, but 10 days would be pretty funny if the airport was right next to a resort with an ocean, and you're like, "I don't know what happens. It's just I'm here." Oh my god. I feel like
Yeah.
Jennifer needs our friends at Norwegian Cruise Line. I feel like the
She needs a
layovers on a
layover.
cruise
We need
ship.
a 7-day layover for Jennifer.
Oh my god. Oh, I
Oh,
love that. You know what? that is probably the most interesting guilty pleasure because it's just time for yourself. It's people be like, "That's true." And I love
What are you
that.
gonna do
It's
in
Yeah.
yeah, no
there? I mean,
kidding. Literally, I was in the airport yesterday and thinking, "There's Starbucks. Here I come." I love that. And I can't believe our time is already gone. It's just crazy. I feel like Jennifer's gonna have to come back and just play with us and hang out. Definitely come back for sure for the Heroes series, which is our military and veteran caregiver series, because I think you have so many words of wisdom. And I think there's other things that we can jump
Oh, yeah.
into, especially being a military caregiver. And you're really committed. You can't find many more people who are stars and bars over here, people, because your husband's Navy, you're hitting every like
my little
branch.
baby's he's gonna have to join the Space Force, and my granddaughter's gonna have to go in the Coast Guard, I think.
Yeah. And honestly, you got it covered and you've got all the emblems and everything. So, guys, thanks so much for listening in. We
Yeah.
really appreciate you. And until we confess again, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
All right. So, Jen, I call you Jen. Jennifer, I love that. I love that you take those couple of minutes in the airport just to have.
I used to do, like, the 35-minute layover,
Oh, the sprint.
and I just it occurred to me that there's a beautiful space there for me, and who cares about an hour,
No. No.
right?
Mm-mm.
Not my
You
husband, not my
yeah.
brother, no one cares.
It's funny because you said so it was, I'm not sure, you said at 25 your brother moved in. You had 25, I get almost 25 years when you just said, I'm going to be a caregiver. And there really, that relationship wasn't there. And I'm looking at your life. I was single I got married at 50. So I thought that I was 48. Sorry, it was almost 50. So it's okay. I waited and I got this perfect one. I don't know. He's not perfect. Look at Nellie. He's not perfect. But I'm like, I love that what you said, I love those, that you said, "I stepped off a cliff and was expecting a big splash." I was like, you have made a splash." I'm like, "Oh, that was."
I love it. So I love that. So it's so funny though. So did you meet your husband through Wounded Warrior?
I
Did you
did,
connect it?
I did,
Yeah.
yeah. Even though I said, "I don't want any more veterans in my life," I I don't want any more of that, I just want some, like, accountant.
I want non-Superman, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, military is, but here's the thing, you're fluent in it.
Mm,
You're
mhm.
fluent in military. You understand. And I think it's through that understanding with your brother and having been it sounds like you were truly born to care. You know what I mean?
I feel like
God gave you this gift.
it was never a conscious decision, but so many caregivers have to make it. I guess in that moment when I could have sent my brother to foster care, or I could have been a rotten teenager not taking care of my grandma, but, like, for
Yeah.
real, it just never is a decision for me. It's
No.
just I do it, and I appreciate you letting me share, like, the whole story because
Oh, yeah.
I don't usually talk about, like, the caregiving as a teenager for my grandma. I haven't really talked about that very many
Mm.
times, so
I
Our
saw that it was
grandmother Go ahead.
emotional for you. No, I saw that it was emotional for you
Our
because
grandmother was and I said our parents worked a lot, but they owned a hardware in a really small town. What you talked about small town, that was our small town.
that's us. We had the
And,
five and dime,
yeah, we walked to the corner drug.
and you walked to the corner drug.
But the thing
Mhm.
is, when you talked about the influence in your life, the positive, like we would go to church with her and she would fill out our little tithe offering thing to make sure we had 50 cents in there. Like the
Mhm.
positive influence and the way that you look back on your life. And when we say, you don't talk about this person because it'll come back to you, that was our grandmother put that in our heads. And I listened to you talk about that and we call her Bird. That was our Bird. That was our grandmother. And there's so
Oh,
many
that's
things.
good
Yeah.
memories. Like, even you
Oh,
talking
yeah, it
about your
is.
grandmother
Yeah.
makes me think, "Oh, Miss Bird," because
Mhm.
she was
Mhm.
only was what, 5 I was a giant. I'm 5'10", and so I can remember, because I was 5'10" since I was in 8th grade, and so she would come up beside me, and she really was right under my chest, and she would always just put her hand and just pat my side, right on my hip, and there's little things, those things that you miss, and I was with someone, so I was when we went home for the funeral last weekend, my Aunt Marlene came up, and she's about my grandmother's height, and she put her arm around me in the same way, and we were in the church, and it makes me tear up now, and she put her hand like that, and I'm like, "Oh, that's what Bird used to do."
Yeah.
And it's those things that you're like, because it wasn't easy growing up.
Mm.
And it wasn't easy, and we didn't have a lot of money, and my grandparents didn't have a lot of money, but you're right, Jay. She always made sure that we had our tithe. There's this whole like give back to others and help others, and that's what
Yeah.
we're here to do. And I love small community for that. I wish I long for, I was talking with somebody yesterday on the plane. I long for those
Yeah.
times for our children now
Yeah.
Yeah.
because there's all this technology that gets in the way of relationship sometimes.
We were talking at the funeral how we saw, because we had a large family. And after church, we went and played football, all these cousins and everything. But even the people that because we go home, but we don't go, Natalie and I don't go home that frequently. And people we haven't seen in 20 years. And they come up and they tell you stories and when you were little. And I don't think people get that. I don't, that makes me sad that I don't know. I think it's just different now. You want to make sure they get that aspect in life.
Oh, I'm longing to get my little one to a smaller town,
Yeah.
and honestly, I something strange is happening to me. I've always been told how much I look like my grandma, and
Mhm.
I'm coming up on the age when I met my grandma, and I am like the spinning image. I
Wow.
look in the mirror every day, and I'm starting to see her emerge from me,
Yeah.
and the truth is that she's always been emerging from me, and it
That's
sounds
right.
like your word was the same way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
It's the greatest gift that I think that we're given, and I think there's so many things that God puts in front of us, and we believe that everything is intentional, and we know that our grandmother was put into our life to support our parents, and because our parents were young, and our parents they had to go to work. They didn't go to college. They got married young, and at 17, 18, they just graduated high school, and you got to go to work. And that's what I love about rural communities though, because at that time, everybody got to raise everybody. I was taking instruction. It could have been a guy working on the road and he could have been like, "You need to pull it together." And I'd be like, "Yes, sir."
Or I will tell your grandparents and you
No,
will
you're
be in
wrong.
big trouble.
You're one of the Sharps grandchildren. And we're like,
Uh,
Yeah, you'll be in big trouble. So,
that's so
oh,
funny.
thank
Well,
you for all of your wisdom today.
this
There's
is
so
so
many
good.
things I'm so excited to get out on the air. I know when we start posting things about the episode, there's so many it takes people a long time to get that stuff though, Jennifer, all the things. And we have so many guests though, and I wish we could put a billboard up that say, when you come to that point, please get counseling. Please
yeah.
go talk to somebody.
I wish I could go back to her, to me, and say, "Do this
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Save yourself a lot
Yeah.
of
Work through
anguish."
this. Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it
Yeah.
funny that you decided to do it? You said you went to counseling after. Was it after? When were you when you started counseling, if you don't mind asking?
Oh, so it was when my son joined the Marine Corps.
Yeah. I'm assuming he joined at 18, like most.
Mhm,
Yep.
mhm.
So you have all this stuff. Do you think you didn't do it because of in your mind you didn't have time
Yeah.
or
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. 100% didn't have time. I had a meltdown when my mom had her stroke, and it was like, "Oh, no." Honestly, my cousin was at my house, and I couldn't breathe. She took me to urgent care. They gave me Ativan,
Oh
like,
my
just, like, 4
gosh.
pills of it, right?
Yeah.
And then I pulled myself together, like, that was, like, 2 days, and I got out of it. I thought I was having a heart attack. And then but then I didn't do anything about it just yet. Like, maybe, I don't know, 6 more years before I was like, "Oh, heck, don't do that again."
Well,
No
and
more fake heart attacks. That's what Mary
Yeah.
and I call them, fake heart
Yeah.
attacks.
oh, it is true. And I think the thing is our culture is just, "Oh, just take a pill. Take a
Yeah.
pill. Everything's easier with a pill." And the reality is that can help. It's meant to be as a part of the whole strategy as a mental health provider. But I'm going to say, dude, I love going to counseling. It's all about me. JJ would
Yeah,
tell you it's all about me all the time
It's
anyway,
always all
but
about
it's
her,
all
Jennifer.
about me. I'm like, hell yeah, let's talk about it. It's all about me.
Oh,
And good clinician just pulls out what you already know. I'm going to
yeah,
tell anybody who's never gone to counseling, a good clinician just simply allows you to realize what's inside or give you those aha moments. You're like, "Ooh, you're right."
I think for me though, it's a safe place that I can talk and
Oh, yeah,
nobody's
no
going to judge me.
judgment.
Like it's safe. There are things that you can say though that you don't feel like you could say to anybody else. And
Yeah.
that for me is like, I'm totally failing and I have failed mom and even for our dad that passed away. And I've said this before, but it took a long time for me to be okay with it. I'm failing dad who passed away 13 years ago. And when you have to come to grips with that, you're like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. But
He's not
those
even
are
here to be
things
disappointed. That's what I'll
I
tell Gentry. I'm
know.
like,
But
stop
you're
it.
like, you have these thoughts and you're like, I got to get these out of my head. And that's the safest place to get them out of your head. And then
Mhm.
you're like, okay, I've accepted this and it's okay. But anyway, Jennifer, thank you. I just don't think we can thank you enough.
We
Like you
love
should
you.
be like an emotional support class.
Yeah, honestly.
I do motivational speaking and I do some workshops adjacent to that. That's what I do
Yeah.
for Wounded Warrior Project, to share my story. But beyond that, the last couple of years, I've started teaching people some breathing exercises. I give them these little, I put these on the table, these little coloring pages,
Oh,
and I
don't
put
you love those?
color pencils out, and I just leave them there while I talk. And I can tell the people that are taking care of themselves because they'll start to color a little bit. And so at the end of my speech, I tell them why I put that there. And I tell them to take that home and color it because we can let our mind take a little break when we do that. And they'll all be like, I should have been coloring this. I needed to color this.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
That was
Did
my
I miss
job.
the assignment? Because that would be me. I thought I didn't
Some
know that
people
was
will
a part
go,
of this.
I want
Oh,
to color it. Should I color it?
I know.
Am I allowed to color it?
This paper she gave me.
I'm telling you,
I
I
need
feel like,
permission.
yeah, I feel you ought to send us the image that you just did so we can be
Oh,
like, here's a therapeutic intervention. You should color as you're listening to this. And but seriously, it's in the sense of there's reason that there's the adult coloring books because
mhm.
if you think about I think a lot of people think if you're not making eye contact that you're not listening. And
Yeah.
that's hard because I was always told you better look at that finger. You better
Boom,
listen
boom,
and
boom.
and I
I'm the
expect you to
audience.
look at me.
Yeah.
That's right. And what people don't understand is it makes it so much easier for some people they can't make that eye contact. It's too much.
I can't
And
look.
so if I look down, but if I'm coloring and I'm listening, but it's a sign of respect. And it's a value thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If our people have been taught like, oh, if you don't make eye contact, you must not value what I'm saying. And I'm
Yeah.
like, stop it.
Jennifer, I will share this one funny thing. So I'd love to just doodle. And so in my best days when I'm taking care of myself, you'll laugh. I don't know whether you can see. Do you see this is my marker thing. And when I actually am journaling or I'm doing like something positive for myself in the morning, I have this cup that I love. And so I treasure it. Like if my husband comes in here and I see one of my markers out of the cup, I'm like, did you use my purple marker? He was like, I needed a pen. I'm like, there's a pen container. You need to use it. Don't touch the markers.
I
He's,
mean, Jennifer,
you are psycho.
okay, so I have to tell you, this is exactly what so our dad, that is our dad because he would say he had this toolbox and if any of the tools were moved, he knew it. And he'd be like, girls, who used the thing? And we're all like, and
You touched the screwdriver. Was
who
it me?
touched the screwdriver? And I'm like, what was the dust moved? Oh my God. So yeah. Anyway, Jen, thanks so much. And we'd love to have you come back on
Yeah.
Heroes. I think actually, and I think not even representing the organizations, I think maybe coming and talking about what that's caring for an individual, a veteran who's disabled. How do you do that? Especially considering that the military, I think that is I
Mhm.
think that's different. I think you have to you approach every individual differently, but I
Yeah.
think there's some stuff.
Oh, there's specific nuances. It's a blessing to me that I had that experience from my brother when my son got hurt because
Mhm,
I was able to help connect him to things that I'm sure made it better. Like,
mhm,
I can't imagine what it had been like
mhm.
without that knowledge, so
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'd love to
Mm.
have you come back and let's just plan on it. And so we'll reach out. I'll be contacting you anyway to let you know when this airs. It will air next month, by the way, Jennifer. And so
We're losing your mic, Natalie.
hold on a second.
Probably my phone is probably trying to connect to her computer.
Tech
I didn't even
difficulties.
know they could do that. Is there just like a new software
Mhm.
that now my phone and my computer are one working against me with my chat GPT? It's nuts.
No. I have a problem with Siri. And if I say, oh my gosh, I can't say it too loud. So somehow I got my iPad connected to it. And now if I say Siri, great. Then everything connects and it all starts talking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming.
It's
Techie
just my
people.
little baby's Alexa.
Oh
And
my
I'll
God.
say it because
You know she's listening.
Yeah.
it's gonna tell you a story. I don't know, it's gonna hoot like an owl. I mean, I can't.
Not today, Satan.
Not today.
Not
Oh,
today, country.
yeah.
So, hey,
Y'all have a good Friday. This helped me today. I needed
good.
this.
Good.
We
We
love
needed
you.
you today too, because
Yeah.
there was so much in there that helped me.
That's the money.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll talk with you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.